Hey there, welcome to the Old Virginia Smoke YouTube channel. My name is Luke Darnell, Pitmaster of Old Virginia Smoke, and today we're going to show you how we trim our competition brisket. We generally buy an 18 to 20 pound Snake River Farms Gold, and today we're going to show you how to get that bad boy ready for the smoke. All right, so today what we're going to do is we're going to walk you through how we trim a competition brisket. Right here you see we have the best in the business. You can't find any better. This is probably a 19.5 pound Snake River Farms Gold brisket. If you're going to cook in competitions, you can't really find anything better than this. I know there's some other purveyors out there, but this is the most consistent product, has been for years, and we absolutely love it. And we've been killing it in the brisket category for years. So this thing, we're going to start with the fat side up here because we really don't want to mess around with the top. And we carefully cut through that plastic. And if you can watch us dig this thing out of here, what we're going to make sure that we do is keep that plastic intact, because if you just pull that thing out of there all willy-nilly, you're going to get juice from that blood from that brisket everywhere. So we're going to pull it out of there carefully. You can see I spilled a little bit there. And then we flip her over, start taking a look at what we got here. I like to, I spilled a little bit of juice, so I'm going to clean that up really quickly, try and keep my area pretty clean. And then, you got to take your time when you're trimming your competition meat. This is something that is easy to do wrong, and it's something that could make you pay further down the line if you don't do it right. You could end up with cutting part of your flat off on the bottom when you trim, or you could end up making it too narrow, so whereas your slices are going to look really short in the box. And those are all things that we really don't want to do. Another couple of things to keep in mind while this is going on is you want to use a really sharp knife. And that's important because you don't want to be digging into the flat of this brisket. That's going to make things really easier on you. More people are also hurt by a dull knife rather than a sharp knife. So that's very important. So we're going to get rid of this plastic here, try and keep our area as clean as we can. That's another cool little trick, is that if you keep it clean, keep it organized, you're not going to get lost. You're not going to have a lot of chaos and a lot of utter mumbo jumbo going around in your brain while you're getting ready to do this. So I like to start here, and I'm just looking at this brisket to check out its fat level. As you can see, there's a good deal of surface fat on the top of this. So I'm going to start by trimming out this little paunch of fat here on the side. That way I can see where the flat starts, or where the flat stops, and where the point begins. And there'll be a ridge of fat running there by my right hand. I'm going to trim off this garbage that's the brown meat on the side. I know I don't need that, but that's also allowing me to look at the thickness of what the brisket has got right there. Just constantly feeling it, looking for hard things. Then I start digging into the back. I go underneath the fat seam and take out a little bit of the point with what I'm trimming. That is ensuring that I do not cut into the flat at all. There has been a time, I talk about it on the podcast a lot, where you make mistakes, and I essentially cut the flat in half by accident and had a really weird looking box that day. But as you can see, we're leaving a little bit of point on that. We're on that flat. We're going to kick that over to the side, and now we can start seeing where we got on elevation. Our knife that we use is a typical boning knife, which is a good indicator of how long your slices generally should be. So I use that as a guide while I'm trimming. Next, we're just going to try and find where we start here. Obviously, we want to turn in as much of the meat towards my right hand, which is the point side of the brisket. We want to make sure that we're doing that because that's generally the most fat side. So now we're checking for elevation, right? We want to make sure that we get this brisket as level as possible. And that's why we've left this barrier of point meat and a lot of the fat on the bottom. That way we can trim this as it's needed to make sure that this brisket is completely level while it's sitting in the cooker. This is going to ensure that the brisket gets done evenly across that entire brisket as much as possible. That way, when we're slicing at the end, we know exactly what's good and what's bad. Now you can see I'm measuring out using my knife to figure out where I want to start trimming these edges from. These the two sides, the east and west of this brisket right here. So I'm just continuing to square it up, and then I'll chop off those two sides there. Trying to keep it in as much of a square as possible. Next, I take my knife and I'm trying to round those edges a little bit. That is something that was taught to me that I'm not sure what it does. It makes the brisket a little more aerodynamic as the air is coming over top of it, but also will keep those edges a little bit drier in my experience. So I use my knife here to do this. I've also been known to use scissors to round off that top and make sure that, you know, we're just making sure that it's exactly where we want it to be. You see all these pictures of these trimmed briskets on Facebook and stuff, and they look all square and stuff. I don't really care about that as much. I care about my side-to-side length here. As you've seen, I'm measuring it again. I'm always trimming back down just to get it to a reasonable place. And part of this is because I like to, when I wrap it in foil, I then like to put it into a half pan. That's going to make sure that when I'm wrapped, if I happen to poke a hole in my foil, I'm not going to get au jus it's not going to all run out of the brisket. And so here we go. You know, we've gotten this to a pretty good place. Now we're going to gently take our very sharp knife and we're going to just kind of cut some of the surface fat off. Try and get down to the meat, remove some of the silver skin. Now, a lot of this is, you know, I've found that a lot of that is going to cook out. But what you really, really, really don't want to do is go digging around in these fat veins into the top of this brisket. All you're going to do is create, again, an elevation change in that brisket. You're going to create a gap, and it's going to look funky in the box whenever you get to that point. So, as I said, you can't really win a contest at the meat trimming stage, but you definitely can lose it. So this is a very important lesson. You know, take your time, small cuts. I see guys sometimes using a brisket slicer to trim a brisket, and you can't really make small cuts with this. It does work in some instances, but I prefer the smaller boning knife just because it gives me a little bit more control and it allows me to really attend to some details here. Now you can see I've got this thing pretty lined up where it is. The edges are rounded, just doing a little bit more detail work. And this thing is pretty much ready to go. We've got good thickness all the way around this brisket. It's ready to go. It's ready to be injected, and then it'll be ready for the contest. So stick around, find out some new stuff, and give us a follow.